Welcome to Bold Guy DIY. In this video, I'm going to tell you how to calculate how much electricity the devices in your home are using and how much that's really costing you. Now, when it comes to the electricity use in our home, most of us are familiar with how much it costs at the end of the month, what it is that we're being charged on our electric bill. But a lot of us don't realize what that actually equates to in terms of each device and how much leaving a light on or leaving your computer running or that kind of thing really takes. Often we're told that if we make sure that we turn off the lights when we leave a room, we're going to save a lot on our electric bill. Or if we don't leave the fridge door open, or if we make sure that our furnace isn't running more than it needs to, or our air conditioner. So I want to give you in this video a chance to see how much those devices really cost you and a way to calculate it out for yourself so you can see how much impact each of those things really has. The first thing we need to talk about when we're looking at how much electricity costs us in our home is how much the utility is charging us and how they measure the electricity that we consume. If you look at your electric bill, you should be able to see a cost for the actual consumption charges that you've used during the month. Now, this is how much electricity you're actually being charged for, not the delivery charges and transmission and other administration fees that are a flat rate that you get charged no matter how much electricity you use or save. The consumption of electricity is measured in kilowatt hours, and if you look on your bill, you should be able to see how many kilowatt hours you were charged for in the last month and also how much per kilowatt hour you are being charged. In my area, it averages out to be about 6.5 cents to 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on the type of rate plan that you have. That's the first step because we need to know the baseline of how much those kilowatt hours really cost. But the next big question is, what in the world's a kilowatt hour? And how do I know how many kilowatt hours a particular device is using? Now, every electrical device in our home should come with a sticker on it, and that's part of the legislation, whether that's CSA or UL or CE or one of the other electrical standards that are out there. They determined that there needs to be a sticker with labeling. The stickers on our electrical devices have ratings on them that tell us how much electricity is being consumed by that device. And it's important to note that information so that we don't overload our circuits if we're plugging in multiple things into one outlet, or also in this case to know how much electricity is actually being used and to calculate what that is costing us in real dollars and cents. The first rating for electrical consumption, and one that's on a lot of devices like light bulbs, microwaves, toasters, most things with a heat source, is the rating of watts, or it's typically listed as W. So you might see on a light bulb, for example, 60 W, that's 60 watts. You might notice that the word watt is inside the term kilowatt hour, and that's not a surprise or a mistake. In order to find out how many kilowatts your device consumes, you simply need to divide by 1,000 or to move the decimal 3 places in order to see what the kilowatt value is for the watts being used. So if we use the example of a 60 watt light bulb and we divide it by 1,000, we get 0.06 kilowatts. That's how much power that a 60 watt light bulb is using. Now, if we take that over an hour, so an hour of use for that 60 watt bulb, we're going to get 0.06 kilowatt hours. We're getting 0.06 kilowatts times the number of hours that's being used. If we use 2 hours, 3 hours, or whatever, we just take that kilowatt rating, we multiply it by the number of hours, and that's how many kilowatt hours of electricity is being consumed. Now, if you think about that and you do the calculation, 0.06 times 0.065, which is 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour that I'm paying, you get 0.4 cents per hour. Every 60 watt light bulb in my home would then be costing me 0.4 cents for every hour that I have it on. Now, that might seem really tiny, and it is, but you have to factor in that a lot of light fixtures have more than one light bulb in them, and some of those light bulbs are rated at even a higher wattage. So to count up the total consumption of a particular light fixture, you add up the wattage of all of those bulbs, divide by 1,000, and then multiply by the number of hours that you're using them in a day or a month or week, whatever measurement you want to use. Then multiply by the rate that you're paying per kilowatt hour, and that'll tell you how much the device is costing you. You might be surprised that the things that you think are costing a lot are really only costing a tiny bit, and the things that you aren't thinking are a big deal actually add up to a few dollars a month because they're on so often. Of course, the calculation works for so many other things besides just light bulbs. For example, if you were to take your microwave and you look at the sticker that's on it, it'll tell you how many watts it is. Our microwave is 1.5 kilowatts. So for every hour that our microwave is running, it's 1.5 kilowatts times 1 hour is 1.5 kilowatt hours. Now, I don't know about you, but we don't run our microwave an hour constantly. In fact, in a day, it probably gets less than 10 minutes of a workout. So when you think that a full hour of running your microwave is only 1.5 kilowatt hours, maybe 11 cents, that really isn't going to add up to very much because of the short period of time that we actually use it. When you think that a microwave might cost you 11 cents an hour to run, the 5 minutes that you might use it in a day really don't add up to very much. Therefore, your microwave, it doesn't really matter how efficient it is, because a more efficient microwave might only save you a couple of cents a day. Is that really worth it? That's up to you to decide. But if the energy efficient microwave costs a lot more than the standard efficiency one, you can see it's going to take a long time to pay off that difference. So pretty much every device in your home that uses heat, things like a hairdryer or a toaster or your oven, will all have a wattage rating because that's the most convenient way to equate the power being consumed and the heat being produced. Now, you do have to keep in mind with those devices if they're working to their full capacity or not. If you're using your hairdryer but it's not on the max heat setting, then it'll be using less than the full wattage rating on the device. Same thing with a toaster that's only using a couple of the slots instead of all 4, 6, or 8, however many you have in your giant toasters. An oven is not constantly going to be on, as it fluctuates on and off in order to meet the heat demands of the thermostat and the temperature it's been set to. So keep those things in mind when you're calculating how much electricity those devices are really using. But if you think about how long you're running them for and about how hard you're using the device, are you using it on full power, half power, etc., that'll give you an idea of how much electricity is actually being consumed. You can convert it to kilowatt hours and know pretty well how much that device is costing you. On other devices, they won't have a watt rating. Instead, they'll have an amp rating, or ampere, and that'll be denoted on the sticker or the product labeling as an A. So for example, it might show that it's 120 volts and it's operating at 1.5 amps. That 1.5 amps tells you how much current that device is drawing, again at its full rated load, and you can use that amperage in order to calculate how many watts it's equivalent to. So in order to calculate the watts, you simply take the voltage of the device. Typically in our home that's going to be 120 volts, or for some devices 240 volts, and you're going to multiply that by the current. When you multiply those two numbers together, you're going to get a rough equivalence for how many watts that is. And then when you convert the watts to kilowatts and multiply them by how many hours they're going to be in use, you're going to get a very similar type calculation to let you know how many kilowatt hours are being used by that particular device in a day, week, month, or whatever period you're looking at. On other devices, it can be really tough to figure out exactly how much electricity is being consumed, and you kind of have to estimate. Things like your computer, which never really run at the full power requirement, but you could probably approximate would run at close to half for most of it, or you could try to figure out an amount that seems reasonable for that device. Of course, turn it into kilowatt, multiply by the number of hours it's being used, and that'll tell you how many kilowatt hours. Then you can find out with the rate per kilowatt hour how much that device is costing you. Of course, these are estimates, but an estimate is still better than no measurement at all. If you want a really precise measurement to know how much electricity a particular device is using, you can buy little power consumption meters, which plug into your wall, and then you plug the device into it, and it'll record and display how much power is actually being consumed by that device. That can be really helpful if you needed to know a very specific amount, but in most cases, an estimate or general calculation will be just fine to give you an idea of how much electricity is being consumed. There are a whole bunch of different ways that this information can help you. It can help you to choose the most efficient appliances and find out if it's really worth it. If it's worth changing out your light bulbs to higher efficiency ones. Or if your electricity consumption habits are really that bad, or if changing them in some way will really make that much of a difference. You might think that that one light bulb that you leave on constantly and always forget to turn off is the one that's jacking up your power bill, but you might find when you calculate it out, it's really only a few cents a month. Meanwhile, that air conditioner that you're running constantly, or that pump for your swimming pool, or all of those different things that are motor loads or high heat or high energy consumption, those are going to make a much bigger difference. I hope you can find this information useful and that you'll put it to work determining where your electricity dollars are really going and what you can do to maximize their potential. I think that answers this question pretty well, but if you have other questions, please leave them in the comments or send me an email and I'll be sure to make a video about them if I feel it can be helpful. Like and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to be notified of future videos as I post a new one every week, project videos, Ask an Electrician, and all sorts of things that interest me and I hope will interest you as well. Until next time, in all your thirst for knowledge and DIY projects, don't be afraid to be bolder.